This video is about the tragedy at Oxford. I don't think it fared well with Oxford. What happened, if you go and read any of the places where this video is posted, the comment sections are trashing Oxford, because there's something very tragic about a student body, and I mean possibly professors who allowed this to happen. It's reflecting poorly upon that place. It's saying that whatever prestige was there before has been long gone, and I do believe they owe the honorary guest an apology, a written apology, and not because some random person on the internet says so, because it's the right thing to do. Things got out of hand. There's a guy who told him to shut up. There's people who told him, I don't really like you being here. And, you know, I thought it was funny until it wasn't funny anymore. We're in a very tense time for a certain group of people, and there was a lot of macro aggression, including from the host herself when she kept cutting him off. It was probably a waste of time, because there's so many people who were so thick-headed with their own prejudice and racism, justification of, and lack of understanding of how war works. And a lot of people are doing body counts. They're counting, well, how many people are dying here and how many people died there, and oh, these are not matching, there's so many more people dying here. There's something to be said about cruelty, the amount of cruelty. There's something that happened in Germany that was so tragic. People were also put in ovens at that time, and it was done to civilians. It wasn't done to other soldiers with the, telling the civilian population leave, but they just won't, because their government wants nothing to do with taking care of their citizens. Why is it Israel's government's responsibility to care for the citizens of their enemies? The enemy doesn't care about their own citizens. Why would they? This is not logical. And you know what? It turns out Israel does care. Kind of makes sense because the media is so against it. Like, there's so many things happening in Israel right now from all kinds of angles. Media has not reported it. Not reported anything about the 30,000 people who exited part of Israel in order to go more inland. Nobody's talking about it. This is an amazing revealing and an unveiling of all the lies and the influence that media has, and the fact that people just are so blind. And it's one thing to be blind and willingly ignorant about specific things on purpose, but to be so bold as to announce that in a place like Oxford to the person who's come as an honorary guest there, and to have the nerve to tell that person to shut up, and the host cutting him off all the time. She made him repeat himself, because she needed to have a narrative. She needed to make sure that it was made clear what her opinion was on him. And it felt a little bit like a humiliation ritual. And I don't know if he was keen to it, but that's what it felt like. I don't know how the professors survived that. Clearly it must be coming down from the professors. That's probably what they're reflecting, is the truth of what that school is a dumpster fire.
Ben, it's an absolute displeasure to see me standing. Well, it's absolute. I will get to my question, however.
Thank you for coming anyway.
My displeasure. I was told to silence, so I would ask you again, please shut up. My point now.
So the honorary guest was asked a question about women's health and the right to have a safe procedure in this decision that they make. I have an opinion about that. This isn't about law, because I think Ben's mind is law-oriented, and so clearly that's what his focus is. To me, I'm talking about the morality of the issue and the fact that these type of things reflect humanity as a whole, all of us as a whole. If we're cruel to animals, we're cruel to the elderly, if we're cruel to babies and children, this says a lot about us as a whole, as a society. When it comes to women's health, there's always this debate about these three different types of women, and it's the one who is poor and in a state that she's not allowed to get this procedure and ends up going into a back alley. And then the second woman is the one who is in a safe place, has a procedure where she is in an affordable way. And then the third woman is the one who's in a country or a state. She's not allowed to have the procedure, but she's wealthy, and she's allowed to leave and go somewhere else. This is always the great debate. It would have been better if we had a society that took full, well-rounded responsibility, because there's something so tragic about what's being asked of in this procedure, that let's say a woman was raped, she has a kid, she knows, if I get pregnant, I have to have it, because there is this option for a procedure, but she's given knowledge from her doctor that there are other options like adoption, but there is this backroom procedure that could be done. But we want to make sure that you're healthy, you're out of a violent environment, that you're not just going to be brought down the street, whoever, who's going to keep doing this to you over and over again, and the state pays for it, provides for it to keep abusing you. we should take more responsibility. We should make sure that that person gets pulled out of the house if, let's say, they are being abused to that extent. And then there's the one, you should have a kit, and then as long as you have evidence, you have this backdoor procedure offered to you. And there are women who are anti this procedure, who say, take it from me sincerely, a woman who had a baby to my abuser. So these women are out there. I'm not saying I understand what it would be to be that woman, but I'm saying we should take more of a well-rounded type of responsibility if we were to have that procedure as an option. It should be something that is done with full knowledge, with all the care that should be taken, so that nobody can take advantage of ridding themselves and the person they abused of any evidence of the abuse. This is my point, okay? With that in context, with the fact that I'm telling you I do care for women, there is a moral truth. If somebody comes into your house and hurts your baby in their crib, there are people who sit on death row in these similar situations because it is a life for a life. And this isn't some person who came in from outside who decided to take your baby. These are women who are not informed or scared or afraid or worried or not given the support in all the other places. Seems like the easier option in a society that applauds it, celebrates it. It's a culture of death. So I understand why women are doing this. I get it. So I'm not judging people as a whole. What I'm saying is there's the woman who was poor that went to the back alley. There's a woman who was rich who left to go get it somewhere else. And then there's a woman who was able to get it very cheaply where she is. If all of these women just so happen to get an infection, it's been proven to not only hurt women physically and make it so they can't have children in the future, it definitely hurts them psychologically. There are women who are coming out of the woodwork saying, this has damaged me in a way that I'll never recover from unless in Christ. If each of those women died, that's a life for a life. It's the reason why people sit on death row and die on death row, because you took a life. So if your life is the payment for taking somebody else's life, for snuffing somebody else out, but it's more dramatic than that, because the kid in the crib who was in the company of his family sleeping in the next room, he had a name. You're making it so this person's existence is never acknowledged by anybody, including their family members. You haven't given them a name, and you made it so the blood doesn't touch the ground so it won't cry out to God. Instead, it goes into a sink. Instead, it goes into the toilet. Nameless being who's innocent before birth. We're born into sin. Everything before that is innocence. They did not choose to be here. You do not trip and fall and accidentally get pregnant. There's a very small percentage of people who are raped who do get that situation going, but I'm telling you, that was not most women. They're using it as a form of birth control. If each of those women just so happened to die because their procedures failed, the word would be justice, because it's a life for a life. That's my take. And I know it sounds cruel and cold and callous, but we cannot be a society that justifies snuffing out and extinguishing people simply because it's not convenient to us. On a lighter note, look at this GQ dad walk that he does here. He won this debate before he got to the microphone, in my opinion. So my next video will be an argument on why we need a new word for what Jesus did on the cross, because it's not human sacrifice, because he wasn't human. And there's no historical references to help assist us with understanding what Jesus did, because what he did was so out of the box and so different, and by definition cannot be human sacrifice, because he was one death for the lives and souls of many, whereas that's not how human sacrifice usually works. And the Old Testament is foreshadowing it, trying to get us some clues to understand what is above us. Like, it's above our head. We can't grasp it. I have a case for that in the next video. I do think we need a new word, maybe a Latin word or something, that defines this as a deity sacrifice, with the root word being like deity or God, sacrifice, meaning it's God himself who reached out and extended himself to us, which is not like a human thing. It's above what humans would do. That's my next video. This is Linda of Christ is King forever. May God be with you.